This video contains spoilers for the entire Danganronpa trilogy. Danganronpa v3 Killing Harmony. This entry in the murder mystery video game series is easily the most divisive entry in the entire trilogy, mostly due to its controversial ending. However, there is one chapter in the game that most people tend to adore, myself included. That is Chapter 4, Live and Let the Languid World Live. Yeah, Danganronpa chapter titles are weird. And there's plenty of reasons why. The murder setup was unique, the trial had some of the most tense back and forths in the entire series, and how the case ended on an incredibly tragic note, with the lovable character being executed for a murder he was manipulated into doing, and never knew that he did. And these reasons are also particularly why I like this case too. But there is one major reason why I adored this case that I haven't seen mentioned often by others. And I feel it's the most important aspect to why I believe this case works effectively on its own, and as set up for the themes and message of the last two chapters in the game's divisive ending. Danganronpa v3's fourth chapter is a meta-commentary that points out the irony of how, despite the distaste the player feels about the constant lies of the character of Kokichi Oma and how he manipulated Gonta to murder, knowing full well he'd be caught and tragically executed, they ultimately wanted to see these things happen. They wanted them to happen because it gave them more Danganronpa. Most of what I'm going to talk about centers around the class trial portion of the chapter, but it's important to establish what occurred beforehand for context leading into the trial. The ultimate inventor student, Miuruma, spent the past few days tinkering with a killing game simulator the game master Monokuma presented, and altered it so that there would be no dangerous objects present for murder. She suggested that the surviving students join her in the virtual world so that they could seek refuge from the killing game in a setting where it would be impossible for anyone to get murdered. So, they enter the simulator and end up in not Animal Crossing, and after exploring a world where no one could possibly get murdered, they return to find out Miu got murdered. Whoops. The remaining students investigate both the real world and the virtual world to find clues and evidence to prepare for the class trial to find the truth and the culprit behind the inventor's death. The first half of the class trial, and even the beginning of the second half, is your average Danganronpa trial, as the remaining students tried to figure out the events of the murder using the evidence they collected. This entire section is easily my least favorite part of this trial. It's incredibly dull, and the pacing drags on for way too long, and not because the culprit is obvious, but rather how more than an hour of this case is used only to establish that the murder happened in the virtual world, which, well, duh, but also how the virtual world loops. An hour spent just for that. Despite not being a fan of how this section is paced out, it's not all bad. There are plenty of instances where I do think making the first half of the trial dull was intentional. You have the game master Monokuma bored out of his mind, which honestly was how I felt during the first half, which contrasts with his over-the-top snide remarks in previous trials. But this tedium becomes more relevant during the end of the trial, which I'll dive into later. After the intermission, we then transition into the second half of the trial, and this is where things start to pick up considerably. It's deduced that Kokichi Oma is the prime suspect of the murder, as he currently has no alibi and was asked by Miu herself to meet up with her before she died. Without any solid evidence implicating Oma went to the roof to see Miu, the player has to make Shuichi lie about never seeing Oma leave the place he was actually staying at. The Supreme Leader is not happy at all about Saihara's lie to incriminate him, especially after the others start to believe in the detective's lie instead of him. So he starts going on a spiel about how the other characters react to lies.
Why do you guys hate lies that much? There's only one truth, but endless possibilities for lies, you know? And some of them are only white lies, or lies to be kind to people. If you deny all of that just because it's a lie, then that means you guys are just terrible at being lied to! Seriously, the worst!
It's easy to scoff at Kokichi's stance in this. After all, the lies he told throughout the game have been mischievous at best, and malicious at worst. At least within the context of the narrative so far. And even then, they only serve to pad out the length of each trial before the characters and player reach the truth of the case. However, this sets the stage for the irony and the hypocrisy that the game points out for the rest of the trial. An angered Oma now has this to say to Shuichi and the others.
Okay, fine. I'll tell you if you want to know that badly. Consider this my revenge. You got some balls lying to me. I'm gonna take away your fun for pissing me off, Shuichi. I won't let you do anything any detective work, or deduction, or mystery solving, or anything.
Oh?
So, I'll confess everything. You guys better listen carefully.
I'm fine with that, but you're confessing without much of a fight.
I told you, I'm gonna get in the way by taking away the mystery solving fun. If I can't win this game, then I'll make it boring for everyone. That's my revenge. Well then, the culprit is Gonta.
Based on these lines and his actions throughout the entire killing game leading up to this moment, the purple-haired student is clearly treating this game of life and death as just that, a game. Many people who played through this section showed distaste towards Oma's mentality, and had this to say.
You guys hate lies that much.
Because the bad,
There's
mate.
only one. If I can't win this game, then I'll make it boring for everyone. That's my revenge.
Not really much of a revenge, because if we can solve this quickly, I think everybody except you would be happy with that.
Well then, the culprit is Gonta.
What?
Get it?
You guys hate lies that much.
Because they
There's
suck.
only one. I'm gonna get in the way by taking away the mystery solving fun.
Oh, by confessing it all yourself, so that way we don't have anything to figure out. Okay. But see, the thing is, nobody's having fun here but Kokichi. So you're making it boring for yourself. Nobody wants to even participate in this. They want it to end quickly. So you're probably helping us, actually.
Well then, the culprit is Gonta.
What?
What?
This is an understandable reaction to have towards what Kokichi is saying. After all, the other students take no enjoyment in finding the culprit in order to survive. To the other students, this isn't a game to them, and they for sure aren't having fun in these trials. However, the truth is, this is a game. This is a game called Danganronpa v3 Killing Harmony, the third entry to a series where the main appeal is solving the murders that take place within them. Everything Oma claims about lies and having fun in solving these mysteries is part of the series' core identity. While none of these students are entertained or having fun, you as the player of this game are. In every single class trial in the series, there are characters that lie to hide the truth from the other students, and us as players are entertained in refuting these lies. We have fun trying to solve these mysteries and the murders that take place within each game's 6 trials. It's incredibly satisfying when we find a contradiction in someone's statement, or when an aspect of a case clicks and the truth becomes apparent. None of this is possible without the other students lying, whether it's to save their own skin or to protect someone else.
That's wrong!
And the game openly pokes fun at this to the player. Kokichi throughout the entire first half of the trial purposely withheld critical information important to solving the crime for the player and the other students. When Kokichi hid information about the mystery of the virtual world, he did it in a way that kept encouraging Shuichi, the protagonist, to solve the events that happened in Miyu's murder, unraveling the lies and inconsistencies presented by him and the other students.
Don't get ahead of yourself, Kaito. We need to listen to everything Shuichi says. I don't know, but Shuichi should know, right?
What?
We would be in a lot of trouble if you didn't. The only one who can solve this mystery and save us all is you. But we solved this mystery thanks to Shuichi. All hail our savior!
Yeah, if Shuichi wasn't here, then we never would have solved this mystery. That's right. Good work, Shuichi.
Thanks, Shuichi. You saved us. You're welcome.
These lies are necessary in order to make these murder mysteries interesting, to make them fun to solve. If the culprit were to be revealed at the start of the trial, the truth revealed immediately, there would be no reason to hold a trial, no mystery to solve, no game to play. To deny what Kokichi says about lies and the thrill of solving these murders would be denying what makes Danganronpa Danganronpa. It would be denying the very reason us as players bought this game in the first place. As Oma stated before, there's only one truth, but endless possibilities for lies. The truth of the case will always remain the same, but it's how that truth is reached is what makes the cases fun to solve. That last point in particular is exactly what happens next in v3's 4th trial, as Oma immediately confesses that it was in fact Gonta, the gentle and caring bug-loving student who murdered Miyu. as Kokichi took advantage of Gonta's gullibility to have him kill the inventor to prevent her from murdering Kokichi. The truth has been fully revealed, laid bare for everyone to see. As I mentioned before, the trial should have logically ended once the culprit was revealed and proven. After all, the truth has been reached, and Oma spends the rest of the case telling nothing but the truth. It gives the player and the characters what they wanted him to do so to begin with. But there is still more than half an hour remaining in this class trial, so what exactly filled in that time? It's simple. Danganronpa, by its very gameplay and narrative design, cannot function without lies to refute, so the other students start to defend a lie that Gonta is innocent. The previous sections of the trial had the protagonist and the player figure out the events of Miu's death, but now Shuichi has to dismantle the arguments the other students present as they try to defend Gonta from suspicion. The other students are now doing what they and the player criticize Oma for doing, purposely presenting lies that ultimately pad out the length of the trial longer than it should be. It's an interesting role reversal that serves to perpetuate how Danganronpa as a series cannot function without the lies and contradictions that comes with its murder mysteries, which perfectly crescendos to the moment where the game forces the player to finally accuse Gonta.
So then, it's down to one person. And who was that again? Well, who is it?
In their attempts to prove Gonta innocent, Kaito and the other students quickly defend Gonta's claim that he remembers nothing about the virtual world, stating that it's because he's not well versed with technology. However, it's proven by the player with Shuichi that Gonta forgetting the events of the virtual world was not due to him not knowing how the world operated, but rather there was an error when he joined in the world, causing him to forget the events that transpired within it, meaning he would have taken the fall for a crime he doesn't remember committing. This sparked questions on what Gonta's motive for murdering the inventor was, as it is such an out-of-character thing for him to do, and he currently has no memory of why he did it either. This causes the remaining students to reluctantly turn to Oma for answers, as he was the one who orchestrated this entire murder. Despite this, the Supreme Leader is being uncooperative, stating how the motive for Gonta's murder doesn't really matter and finding the culprit is more important. And this is where the slow nature of the first half of the trial starts to pay off. As I mentioned before, Kokichi intentionally hid crucial details of the murder in order to have Shuichi, and in a meta sense the players, solve them. But the difference here is that those were details needed to solve the case, the things that make up a good mystery in a Danganronpa game. The avatar error Gonta experienced and his motive for killing Miu doesn't factor into solving how she died and who killed her. Of course, it wouldn't hurt to know these details, as it paints a clearer picture of what happened, but the way the game presents this scenario with Kaito's and the others isn't to have a better understanding of everything in the case, but rather it's to find any sort of leverage to prove Gonta's innocence, knowing full well it's a lie. This is exactly the thing the player and the other characters disapproved of Kokichi doing the entire game, purposefully padding out the trial with lies when the important part should be finding and facing the truth. The rug of self-entitlement the characters feel over Oma about how they always want to seek the truth has been ripped out underneath them, and Oma points this out by stating how the entire crime could have been solved using the process of elimination. Instead of explaining it all to himself, the purple-haired student recaps all the information discussed in the first 2/3 of the trial, and has Shuichi and the player confirm everything as true. None of this information was present at all when Kaito and the others were trying to prove Gonta's innocence, as the discussion of Gonta losing his memory and his motive had no relevance in the murder of Miu Uruma. Having this question and answer portion take the amount of time it did was a genius move on the game, as it's natural for the player to want to side with the other students in defending Gonta, and this scene serves to show the hypocrisy within that logic. The reasoning for siding with Kaito and the others is the same logic the player and the characters used to condemn Kokichi. This culminates to the Supreme Leader finally snapping, yelling this line at the other students.
You get it now, right? That's the truth we were all reaching for. The thing you guys wanted so badly! A truth without any lies! Miu Iruma's killer is Gonta Gokuhara!
This is exactly what these characters and the players claimed they wanted through most of the trial, so the game gave them just that, the truth. the truth that everyone is so desperate to deny. However, it's easy to make a counterclaim towards the irony the game is presenting though. Despite the characters and the player believing a lie throughout most of the trial, the more pressing and moral issue is that Gonta, the sweet and kind bug lover, was manipulated by Oma into killing Mew without having any memory of it. Essentially, he's being sent to be executed for something he had no idea doing. To the characters and the player, empathizing with Gonta's unfair execution in this case should take precedence over some petty philosophical issue the Supreme Leader wants to prove.
You're so mean!
However, this leads to the second irony the game points out against the player, one whose seeds are planted in this class trial, and becomes the main driving conflict in the penultimate trial all the way to the game's controversial finale. For all of the heartbreak we feel about Gonta being the culprit of Mew's death, for all the sorrow we feel when a student dies throughout the course of the game, heck, even the entire series, and more importantly, for all the times we say we wish the characters wouldn't die, there remains one indisputable truth. The truth is, we did want these characters to die. We wanted to see these characters be driven to murder each other. We wanted the deaths to be complicated and full of twists and turns. We wanted each case to be filled with sadness and despair. We wanted to see the culprits be executed in over-the-top and twisted ways. Because we wanted more Danganronpa, a series whose foundations are the lies as mentioned earlier, but also the twisted deaths of the characters we grew to love as we get to know them in each game. It's that reputation the series has that we eagerly wait for new entries, and the reason why fans bought V3 in the first place. We wanted to experience more of that sadness of watching a character we like get killed off, or watching a character crack under pressure of the killing game. Kokichi points this out shortly after Gonta cries being the culprit.
Really? Did Gonta really do it?
Jeez, is that really your reaction? It would have been fun if you went all crazy.
And as much as we want to deny it, Oma has a point. Some of the most memorable culprit breakdowns in the series are the ones who snapped at the end. Take the first game and V3's third case killers, seemingly calm and rational characters having a meltdown once the pressures of the accusations get to them.
My name is Celestia Ludenberg, god damn it!
Apologize. 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 Apologize.
Or Mikon from the second game's third trial, a seemingly harmless character who has done nothing but help the students thus far, finally snapping in an unsettling way.
Forgive me! Huh? 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 I was wrong. Wrong. No, that's not it at all. I mean, it's impossible.
Quality of these cases aside, most of us can't really deny that we were engaged watching these characters snapped when they were backed into a corner. They were memorable, and it's something we look forward to seeing in each new entry. And none of this is more apparent than we look back at Danganronpa 2's Nagito Komaeda. At the start of the game, he was incredibly nice to the other characters, and was helpful to the protagonist. However, during the first trial, he kinda went all... yeah, that. The rest of the game is spent showing Komaeda's twisted demeanor, from telling the other students how he's willing to be killed off for them, to playing Russian roulette with 5 out of the 6 chambers loaded, and going as far as to manipulate someone to killing him without knowing. Gee, doesn't that sound familiar? Danganronpa 2 shows this character who started off as nice and supportive quickly turned into a deranged threat to everyone. And yet, he's one of, if not the most beloved character in the series. Not in spite of his lunacy, but because of it. All because it was entertaining. While it could be argued that Komaeda's reveal was early in the game, before the player could make a connection with him, there are still plenty of other characters who had more characterization before they had a massive breakdown. If Gonta were to snap at the end and reveal that he was a bad guy all along, and was putting up a pure and nice guy facade the entire game, just like what Oma said, then he would have been added to a list of similar characters people liked who started out one way, but ended up crazy by the end. Sure, it would be tragic and heartbreaking, but it's the same kind of heartbreak that we not only expect, but want from Danganronpa. This idea is alluded to at the end of v3's penultimate trial, which serves as an explanation for Kokichi's action throughout the entire game, especially during the fourth trial. The purple-haired Supreme Leader stated how he deduced that there had to be an audience watching the killing game transpire, which was the reason he had to manipulate Gonta in such a sick and twisted way, as well as his other actions inside the killing game, and it can all be summed up by this single line.
At least I wasn't boring, right?
Because it wasn't boring. Even with all the tragedy that happens within Danganronpa, between all the characters we love getting killed off, or worse, turn out to be a killer, through all the struggles the characters go through trying to survive, one thing remains certain: it wasn't boring. Yes, we can empathize and feel watching these fictional characters go through these fictional hardships. The game isn't outright saying it's wrong to do so. However, it's pointing out the irony that despite feeling this way, we find entertainment and engagement from watching everything unfold in this killing game. Which is why the Supreme Leader's statement about how revealing the killer to be Gonta would make the game boring for everyone has some semblance of truth to it. It's a murder mystery killing game for an audience that finds enjoyment in solving the murder mysteries that happen within a killing game. That's why there's killing game media in the first place, because there's an audience for it. As Monokuma mentioned in the final trial,
it makes the viewers even more depraved and obsessed when they feel sorry for you. They watch, knowing that they shouldn't, just to revel in the depravity of it all. That depravity is the appeal of death games. It's the appeal of this very killing game. It's the appeal of Danganronpa itself.
I brought up Nagito earlier because he embodies all of the core traits that make up Danganronpa. He's manipulative, he hides information for his own self-interest, and creates scenarios that threatens the other characters, aspects people adore about him. All of these traits was what made his inclusion in Danganronpa 2 so appealing. We were invested to see what he would do next, and what crazy scheme he would come up with. We were invested in seeing how he would make the other characters suffer. These aspects of Nagito were satirized by Kokichi throughout the entirety of v3, especially during Case 4, all because it isn't boring. It's something us fans loved in the previous entry, so naturally we want the sequel to have more of what we loved before. It's easy to blame Kokichi for all of the crap that happened during Chapter 4. The upsetting deaths of Miu and Gonta, the latter of which he manipulated to kill the former without Gonta even realizing or remembering it. And yes, he did do all those things, there's no denying that. But if we take a step back and examine why he did those things, why these characters are stuck in a killing game trying to murder each other in the first place, it's all because we wanted it.
Trapped in a fictional Danganronpa-inspired world and forced to play the killing game. That is what the world desired from you.
So yes, I'm the mastermind. But the real mastermind forcing you to do this is... the people of the outside world! The people of the outside world are the ones who are forcing you to do this!
Case 4 of v3 gave everything a player could want from a Danganronpa game. A gimmicky murder case, lies and contradictions to refute, a tragic culprit with Gonta, and a not boring villain with Kokichi. It's done in a way that meta-commentates the irony of feeling upset watching everything tragically unfold, yet wanting it to happen in the first place. It's for these reasons that I absolutely adore Danganronpa v3's fourth trial, and found it incredibly fitting that the chapter started with a scene that states this.
And never forget, you wanted this killing game, so you have to win, no matter what. No matter what.
Because in the end, we did want this killing game. Because we wanted more Danganronpa.